When my wife, Sophia, was 4 months pregnant, she secretly went to have the baby aborted. By the time I rushed to the hospital, she had already signed the consent form for the in vitro fertilization (IVF) procedure. Seeing me, Sophia only left me with this: David doesn't have much time left. The David family just wants to have an heir. We can have children later. As she was about to enter the operating room, I calmly took out the divorce agreement and said, "You don't want our child to grow up in a recombined family, do you?" Her friend accused me of being heartless and told me to coax her back. But Sophia looked indifferent and said confidently, "He chased me for 8 years and spent half of his fortune on our marriage. Watch, James will come crawling back to me in a while." But Sophia didn't know that I was just lovesick, not stupid. Start of text. If you like it, remember to subscribe. At the entrance of the hospital operating room, David was holding Sophia on the hospital bed, his brows furrowed as he gently stroked her stray hairs, looking deeply affectionate. I stood in the corridor, holding the divorce agreement, taking in everything. "Excuse me, move aside," the nurse with a tray said impatiently, pushing me aside and walking towards the operating room, interrupting the affectionate gaze between the two. Before I could say anything, Sophia struck first. "David doesn't have much time left. He wants to leave an heir for the David family. He respects you as my husband and doesn't want to cuckold you, so we decided to do IVF. You should be more understanding and not make a scene. Sophia and I met in the first year of high school. I chased her for 8 years, and we got married a year after getting together. After marriage, it was found that she had polycystic ovaries and it was difficult for her to conceive. I tried every means to take care of her, and I was already prepared to not have children. I never expected that she would get pregnant. The moment I knew she was pregnant, I was overjoyed. During her pregnancy, she was sensitive, and as her belly grew, my mother and I were very careful, for fear of making her unhappy. But I never thought that she would have our hard one-child-induced and, with her body not yet recovered, surrogate for her first love. Then David surely wouldn't want the child he worked so hard for to call me Dad," I said, clenching my fists, taking 2 deep breaths, my expression softening slightly, with a faint smile on my lips. "Sign this. Consider it a gift from me to the child. James, I told you, this is IVF. If you want a divorce, don't regret it," Sophia said, her tone a bit impatient. She took the document and pen, scribbled her signature, and threw it at me without mercy. The document landed on the ground with a snap. I didn't care. I bent down to pick up the folder and even dusted it off, then turned to leave. David grabbed me, frowning and smiling bitterly. "James, I'm sorry. It's all my fault. My health is getting worse, and I don't think I'll live to get married and have children. After the child is born, I'll return Sophia to you. I'm the only child in my family, and I can't bear to let my parents experience the pain of losing their child. I just want my parents to have something to look forward to after I'm gone." "David, ignore him," Sophia said, glaring at me, grabbing David's hand and pulling him back to the bed. "James, David is already in poor health. Why are you still provoking him? Can't you be a little kinder? We're doing IVF, not sleeping together. After the child is born, we'll still be husband and wife. Is it necessary to divorce over such a small thing?" "It is," I said. Looking at them made me sick. I forcefully shook off my hand, and David stepped back 2 steps. "Sophia, I'm sorry." "He must be angry," I said, then turned and left directly, but her contemptuous laughter came from behind. "It's okay. He chased me for 8 years. Every time he gets angry, he comes back to coax me. This anger won't even last the night." I gave the agreement to my assistant and let him handle everything, while I devoted myself to work. "James, do you need someone to pick you up after the party?" Olivia called halfway through the banquet. I raised my hand to look at my watch. It was only 9 o'clock. I took the wine from the tray of a passing waiter, took a sip, and nodded, "Okay." Realizing the unique taste, I drank it all in one go, savoring it carefully. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw David in a black suit hurrying towards me. I didn't want to waste words, put down the glass in my hand, and turned to leave. Olivia was just standing at the door in her black Audi. "James, the driver isn't here yet. Can you wait a moment?" She was my junior from university. After graduation, she worked at Thunder Company and was very proper. I strode into the passenger seat, rubbed my temples, and said with my eyes closed, "No, just go." Seeing David following closely, Olivia hesitated for a few seconds, then sat in the driver's seat, closed the door, started the car, stepped on the gas, and drove away, leaving David stamping his feet in anger behind. James. Halfway through the journey, Olivia said worriedly, but then she saw my flushed face leaning against the doorframe. She was so anxious that she stepped on the brake and stretched out her hand to touch my forehead. Her hand was slightly cold. "You're so hot. What's going on?" Of course I knew what was going on. I was really careless with that glass of wine. "Go home," I said, interrupting her plan to take me to the hospital, barely getting the 2 words out. But Olivia's eyes were red, and tears were about to fall. Only then did I remember and gave her a new address. Sophia and I worked in the same company, but we rarely saw each other privately. Few people knew about our divorce. It was normal for her to be worried that her wife might misunderstand if I was taken back like this. "I'm divorced," I said to her in a muffled voice after she helped me into the small apartment and I lay down on the bed. I finally lifted my head from the pillow. I swear, in my 30 years of life, I had never been so vulnerable. My hand holding the water cup was trembling. "After thinking for a long time," she said, "she's the one who's not lucky. There are so many good women out there. We don't need her. Divorce is quite common these days." I smiled bitterly and told her the whole story of our divorce. Since signing the agreement, this was the first time I felt so relaxed. I thought Sophia was still waiting for me to regret and go back to her, so I hadn't told anyone about what had happened recently. Olivia frowned tightly and waved her hand. "James, if you still want a drink, I'll treat you." "No need. You should go back," I said, smiling and waving my hand. It wasn't safe for a young girl to be out alone, and I could hardly suppress the surging heat in my body. Sweat was dripping down in big drops, and my rationality was gradually being consumed. After giving the instructions, I turned and entered the bathroom, turned on the shower. The coolness came, and my rationality returned a bit. I heard the sound of wheels rolling. The bathroom door was opened, and a pair of soft little hands wrapped around my waist, hugging me. Her face was pressed against my back. "You were drugged," Olivia said in a charming voice that vibrated in my chest. I naturally knew, but I couldn't figure out why. Sophia and I had already signed the divorce agreement. There was really no need for this drug. "I'll help you," Olivia said, standing on tiptoe, her hot breath hitting my earlobe, her fingertips touching my burning skin. My rationality collapsed instantly. "James, when you and Sophia walked hand in hand on campus in college, I was so jealous that I was going crazy. Can you hug me?" She put her arms around my neck, panting softly in my ear. "I only want you to hug me." I pinched my thigh until it turned red, trying to regain my rationality. I shook her shoulders, trying to make Olivia sober up. My tongue searched for moisture, and the kiss deepened. The fragrance of peach blossoms filled my teeth. I forgot that only I had drunk alcohol. Her thin shirt slipped off, and the heat spread. Without having time to wipe the water off my body, I picked her up horizontally and threw her onto the bed. It was not until a soft cry and Olivia's tears fell that I realized what stupid thing I had done. She was a little panicked, her hands around my neck, offering her lips. From then on, my movements became much slower. As the sky gradually brightened, the heat subsided. We didn't sleep much all night. When I woke up, I realized what a stupid thing I had done. There was a 1-month cooling-off period for divorce. It hadn't been long. I didn't feel that I had betrayed Sophia by cheating, but I felt it was unfair to Olivia. I got up quietly, got dressed, called a car, and went to the company. As soon as I arrived at the company, Sophia rushed into my office with her best friend. "James, why do you always target David? I've told you, he's in poor health. Can't you be more tolerant of him? He had a heart attack last night because of you. I'm just helping him have a child. I didn't do anything else with him. Do you really have to push him to the edge? I've made it clear to you that I'll always be your wife. You know he's in poor health. Can't you have some empathy?" I clenched my fists, my knuckles turning white, trembling slightly with anger. I had chased her for 8 years, and now I realized that I had wasted my youth. "Last night, you mean the thing when I turned my back on him? If you want to settle accounts, go out and turn right, to the building next door," I said in a cold voice. She was speechless for a moment. Before, David, relying on his status as my wife's first love, wandered around the business world under my name and got a lot of opportunities. Last night, it was obvious to everyone that I didn't get along with him. Everyone knew which was more important. Before Sophia could speak, her best friend Chloe spoke first. James, you know David's physical condition. Whether he can survive this year is still uncertain. He and Sophia are childhood sweethearts. Shouldn't you take more care of him? Chloe threw her bag on the table, leaned on the table, and said to me dissatisfiedly, we've all seen how Sophia has treated you over the years. Don't be so ungrateful. Watching the two women domineering in my office, one of them being the boss's wife, the people outside all pricked up their ears, but none of them dared to step forward. Have you finished? I said indifferently. The two women in the room were both stunned. If you finished, then leave quickly. I got up, walked to the door, and said to the secretary who was eavesdropping outside, Ms. Sophia and I are divorced. If you let her in casually again, you can leave too. Hearing this, the secretary trembled her lips and it took a long time for her to say a word, okay. James, you're crazy. Playing hard to get won't work on me. I advise you to be obedient, and I can still go back and live a good life with you. Don't be too greedy. Humph, it's you who are greedy. But you won't have the chance anymore, I said, looking at her coldly and signaling the security guards to take them away. Both of them felt humiliated. Sophia's face was ferocious. Fine, don't regret it. I shouted at Sophia, it's you who should regret it. It was not until noon that Olivia came to the company. She sat at her desk, blushing and daydreaming. Our relationship was originally straightforward, but suddenly I didn't dare to look at her directly and just buried myself in my work. Near the end of work, Olivia suddenly walked in with some documents, stood in front of my desk, and called out, James. I replied indifferently. She took 2 steps closer to me. Then I sat up straight and looked at her directly. I'm sorry about last night, I said, tapping my fingers on the table absent-mindedly. This was a clear sign of my anxiety. But I'm not divorced yet. It's unfair to you. I paused and then continued, although this may sound harsh, if there's anything you like, I can buy it for you as compensation. My eyes were dim, and my voice was hoarse. Olivia was shocked, as if struck by lightning, and stood there stunned. Then she hugged the documents on the table to her chest, turned around, and walked out quickly. Her hand was on the doorknob. After thinking for a while, she still said, then, after your divorce is finalized, would you like to give it a try with me? Hearing this, I smiled faintly. I had given 10 years of my youth to Sophia. How could I get over it overnight? So what? Olivia suddenly turned around, rushed to me, her black eyes reflecting my figure. She raised her eyebrows slightly. What I want? I'm sorry, I interrupted her in a timely manner when she was about to say more. A sense of sadness welled up in my heart. We do background checks on every employee when they join the company. Olivia's family background, on the surface, is only what people want to see. In private, she's a pampered young lady. How could she not get everything she wants? Okay, I didn't take last night to heart. We're all adults. It's just a matter of mutual need, Olivia said, smiling freely, and then turned and walked out of the office. 2 days later, I was going on a business trip. When I had packed everything, I saw Olivia waiting there in her car. Emily took a leave of absence temporarily, and we couldn't find a replacement, so I had to step in, she said, shrugging helplessly. Not knowing how to face this, I pretended not to understand her premeditation. After getting in the car, Olivia handed me the documents she had prepared. This is the plan for the afternoon meeting. You can take a look first. The driver glanced at us from the rear view mirror and teased, Assistant Olivia is really thoughtful. I paused, and the car started. I focused my eyes on the folder, but I could see Olivia's smile from the corner of my eye. Before, Sophia would accompany me on business trips. After getting in the car, I was used to handling everything myself. This time, I had just asked Emily to come and help at the last minute, and I didn't really expect them to do anything. But I didn't expect Olivia to take out the things she had prepared one by one from her bag, smiling. On the highway, the only sound in my ears was the tick-tock of Olivia typing on the keyboard. A new life was about to begin. Through the car window, I could see the people rushing about for their lives outside. Suddenly, the phone rang, breaking the rare silence. The girl looked up suddenly, her eyes full of tenderness as she covered her ears playfully. You answer it. I smiled. In such a confined space, all three of us could hear clearly. James, where are you? Why can't I use my bank card? Come and pay my hospital bill quickly, Sophia's commanding voice came as soon as the phone was connected. Hearing her words, I threw my remaining courtesy out of the window and cursed at her. Sophia, have you forgotten that we're divorced? Is the father of the child in your belly so useless that he can't even afford this medical bill? You care so much about who the father of the child is. Isn't it because you love me too much? Sophia's voice came from the other end of the phone. Half a month has passed. Your anger should have subsided by now. I promise, as soon as the child is born, I'll come back to you and be your good wife. Isn't that enough? What do you think? I rubbed my temples and emphasized again, we've signed the divorce agreement. Whose child you give birth to has nothing to do with me. Sophia's voice became impatient. James, don't go too far. There's a limit to your making trouble. Push me away, and you'll regret it. The phone was hung up with a snap. I didn't care, but then I immediately received a message. James, you'd better apologize. Otherwise, she'll really be with David out of anger, and you'll regret it. I didn't take it seriously. Just as I was about to put down my phone, another message came, you're married. What can't you talk about? Once the divorce certificate comes out, you'll be a divorced man. See who else will be with you. Messages from the same number kept coming in. The more I read, the angrier I got, and I directly blocked the number. The meeting went smoothly. After the business trip, when I returned to the company, the assistant rushed to my office and asked me mysteriously, James, the madam has come several times and was turned away. The divorce certificate is ready. Should we go and get it? Look, my love for Sophia was so well known that even now, the people in the company still didn't dare to offend her. I gave him an annoyed look. What do you think? He touched his nose and left dejectedly. At the beginning, I bought a villa in Yunjing Villa as a wedding house in Sophia's name. After marriage, we lived there. When she was pregnant, my mother came to take care of her for a while, but later she asked my mother to leave on the grounds of inconvenience. As soon as I got off work, I went straight to the villa. The moment I opened the door, I smelled the aroma wafting from the kitchen. Someone was making soup. My mother had made the same old hen soup for Sophia when she was pregnant. Every time she had it, Sophia would vomit, and eventually, my mother stopped making it. The two of them were snuggled up on the sofa, watching TV. David was only wearing a pair of beach shorts, and Sophia was in a light pink silk camisole nightgown. Their bodies were pressed tightly together. Such intimate behavior was something I had never experienced with her. Every day, apart from work, I had to try all kinds of ways to make her happy, but these peaceful moments had been given to someone else. Hearing the door open, Sophia looked up at me, then leaned her head back on David's shoulder. David raised his hand, signaling her to get up, and then walked towards me. James, you're back. Sophia has some pregnancy-related nausea and wanted to drink chicken soup, so I came over to make it for her. You don't mind, do you? Sophia is the mother of your child. Why would I mind? I said, then walked around him and headed for the bedroom. Just then, there was a clang sound from behind. The clay pot had broken. I turned around and saw the soup spilled all over the floor. Sophia's anger flared up instantly. She pointed at my nose and started yelling, I'm pregnant at home, and I just wanted a sip of soup. You even had to smash my pot. David quickly rushed over to stop her. James, Sophia is pregnant. She can't get angry and risk hurting the baby. Apologize quickly. His brows were tightly knitted. The two of them were acting in unison, as if trying to pin the blame on me. A man should treat his wife better. If you keep this up, Sophia's parents will be angry, he continued to lecture. I couldn't take it anymore. I clenched my fists and punched him, knocking him to the ground. Still not satisfied, I straddled him and punched him twice more, left and right. David's face immediately swelled and turned red, and he spat out a mouthful of bloody foam in pain. Sophia let out a scream and tried to pull me away. What are you doing? He's sick, and you're still hitting him. I ignored her nonsense and said coldly, David, if you can't control your woman, stay away from me. I advise you to be on your best behavior when you see me from now on. Otherwise. I squeezed my fists. I'll beat you every time I see you. I spat, gave him another kick, then turned back to the bedroom, threw Sophia's clothes into a box, and threw both her and her things out. Tears welled up in Sophia's eyes. David, full of concern, tried to hug her, but she refused to comply. Knowing you have a husband, yet you're having a child for another man. Now you're pretending to be noble, I said, crossing my arms and leaning against the door, watching the scene. Sophia looked at me with a gloomy expression. James, you just hid David and kicked us out, and you still say you don't care about the child in my belly. I admit I was wrong for not discussing having a child for him with you first, but David is in poor health and doesn't have many years left. Can't you be a little kinder? I looked at the two of them speechlessly, feeling a sense of disgust for my 10-year-long love. Was I really that naive when I was young, or was I just blinded by love? I emphasized again, I don't care whose child you're carrying. I'm here today just to tell you to leave. I bought this house in full, and it's clearly stated in the divorce agreement. As I spoke, I took out the brand new divorce certificate from my bag and handed it to Sophia. Here you go. From now on, we're done. Seeing the divorce certificate in front of her, Sophia's face turned deathly pale. Are you serious? She asked. I was almost amused by her. Does this look fake? I retorted. I remembered that year in the first year of high school, on the playground, Sophia had a ponytail and was wearing a clean white t-shirt. She exuded a sunny aura. I think that's when I fell in love with her. Half a month later, at the new product launch of Thunder Company, I, as the representative of the organizer, went on stage to give a speech. There was a huge crowd below the stage, and reporters swarmed in from all around. And I immediately saw the little girl in the center, looking up at me with admiration in her eyes. Emily gently nudged my back with her elbow and said with a flirtatious smile, "Look, our James is still as charming as ever. Your father asked me to persuade you, but it seems I don't need to do anything." As she spoke, she took out a blue folder from her bosom and handed it to me. I took a look. It was the speech materials for what was to come. Emily was kind of like a childhood friend of mine. She was straightforward and tomboyish. We had been getting along like siblings since we were kids. I used to worry that she would steal Sophia from me, but she would always pout and say that although she was a bit of a dolt, she wasn't that indiscriminate. I took the microphone from the host, cleared my throat, and said, "There is no absolute success, only the process of continuous innovation. Next, I'll show you the fruits of our innovation." The PPT was projected onto the big screen, and I talked endlessly on the stage. Inadvertently, I caught a glimpse of the little girl's eyes shining with stars and full of gentleness. It's like the happiness I've been waiting for is beginning to materialize. "James," Emily whispered in my ear. I came back to my senses, gave her an embarrassed look, and continued with my explanation. After the speech, on the way back to the audience seats, Emily couldn't help but tease me with a wink. "James, Olivia looks at you as if she's about to melt. Is something good coming up?" "Just do your job," I said, putting the things back in her hand and giving her an annoyed look. "Hey, let me tell you, if something good is really happening, I have to be at the main table," she said with a mischievous smile. For some reason, I felt a bit guilty, and my ears turned red instantly. I suddenly thought of the way Olivia looked at the party that day, with red eyes, like a little white rabbit beneath me. Just then, the little girl came up to me and said cutely, "Wow, James, you're so handsome." Emily smiled meaningfully, raised her eyebrows, and then left. I sat down next to the girl, watching the staff's demonstration. An ambiguous atmosphere gradually spread, and our fingertips accidentally touched. Soon, a gasp made her sit up straight immediately, just like a cat caught stealing. "Olivia," said a girl with long hair draped over her shoulders and a tall figure. After Olivia introduced herself awkwardly, the girl's eyes lit up, and she stared at me intently. "Are you the brother who's 7 years older?" she asked. I was completely confused. "What the hell?" I said. As soon as I said this, Olivia's face turned bright red, and she seemed to want to find a hole to crawl into. "Is your 5-year crush finally about to come true?" the girl whispered to Olivia. Unfortunately, my hearing was too good, and I heard every word clearly. "You gave up being a young lady for him and made yourself look like a nanny all day long. Haven't you caught him yet? I looked down on you." The girl pursed her lips in disgust. I quickly stood in front of Olivia to protect her, and with a smile, I said neither humbly nor arrogantly, "Don't worry about it. I'll definitely send you an invitation when we get married." My actions not only stunned the little girl but also surprised myself. All of a sudden, I didn't want this soft and cute little girl to be wronged. From then on, the little girl was like she was on a high. No matter how I explained, she wouldn't listen. She stuck to me like a little sparrow every day. Later, Sophia stopped me in the parking lot. From a distance, she saw Olivia getting out of my car. The smile on her face immediately disappeared. "Who is she?" David also came over at this time, glaring at me. "Do you know how Sophia has been these days? She's been so sad for you that she hasn't been able to eat for days. You're actually cheating on her with another woman. How can you do this to her?" Sophia looked downcast, with tears in her eyes. "Why are you telling him this? I'm not James dependent. I'm not unwanted either." Hearing this, anyone would think I was the one who cheated first. I ignored them and walked straight towards the car. But David grabbed me, constantly accusing me of being heartless and leaving my wife for another woman. I shook off his hand. Seeing more and more people gathering around, I slightly raised the corners of my mouth, wondering what kind of act he was trying to put on. If he thought I loved Sophia so much that I would sacrifice myself to protect her, he was completely wrong. I motioned for Olivia to get in the car. Sophia stepped forward to stop us. I curled my lips and said something that made her freeze in place. "Can't eat because of morning sickness from having a child for you, isn't it?" Sophia's face turned bright red. She lowered her head and secretly glanced around. "James, you." She gave me an annoyed look, blaming me for revealing the matter. "What about me? Shouldn't I have exposed your affair during our marriage, or shouldn't I have mentioned David's infertility?" I crossed my arms, looking at her with disdain. The two of them looked at me in disbelief, as if they never expected me to know so much. David looked at Sophia with love in his eyes. In the first few days after the divorce, I thought for a long time but couldn't figure out why, since they were childhood sweethearts and clearly in love, they didn't get together but instead married me. It wasn't until Emily showed up in front of me with the information about David's infertility that I understood. David came from a small mountain village, and his family condition was similar to Sophia's. Back then, I was attracted to Sophia's simplicity. It wasn't love at first sight at all. Clearly, she had been planning this for a long time, using my power to pave the way for her beloved. Sophia had been calculating and scheming for 10 years, but now it had all come to light. Even now, Sophia still wanted to argue. I threw the divorce certificate in her face and said, "Take a good look at who's actually cheating." As soon as I finished speaking, David blocked me, preventing me from getting in the car. I deliberately fell to the ground, and more people gathered around. "You had a child with my wife and you still dare to hit me. I'll teach you a lesson today," I said, reaching out to grab David's collar, pulling him to the ground, then straddling him and punching him hard. In fact, I had wanted to do this for a long time. David struggled desperately. I picked up the fire extinguisher on the ground without hesitation and smashed it towards his stomach. Even though I was extremely angry, I still retained some sense and aimed for the places that would cause him pain. Sophia screamed in fright. By the time I was tired from hitting, the security guards finally arrived with the police. "He was the one who started it," said Olivia, worthy of being my top-notch assistant. She threw her phone on the table, and the video of our fight was playing on repeat, clearly showing that David was the one who started the fight. "You?" Sophia was so angry that her chest was heaving violently. I quickly pulled Olivia back 2 steps and said, "She's pregnant. You'd better not make her angry. Otherwise, she might hold us responsible." The little girl also cooperated by taking 2 steps back and hiding behind me in fear. David rubbed the bruise on his mouth and laughed insolently. "The high and mighty James also knows how to protect a woman. Unlike you, you let the woman who's having a child for you rely on others for protection." Olivia carefully stuck her head out and retorted, "Still better than some people." I could hardly help laughing. David's expression turned ugly, and his eyes were filled with killing intent. He kept looking at Olivia. I affectionately rubbed the little girl's head and held her in my arms. Sophia's face also became very ugly. When we left the police station, I contemptuously said to David, "Watch over the mother of your child. Don't come out and make a fool of yourself again." This huge uproar quickly caused an uproar. Sophia, who could originally act arrogantly relying on her status as James's wife, now had no way out. Only then did she realize that she had gone too far. Her face was as pale as a sheet, and her tone softened. She tried to pull the corner of my clothes, but I dodged. She refused to give up. "David and I are just good friends. He doesn't have a child, and I just wanted to help him. If there was really something between us, we would have gotten together long ago. If you don't like this child, I'll have an abortion right away." I was filled with disgust. How could someone be so disrespectful? What did the child mean to her? A Chinese cabbage? Olivia was also shocked by her words and opened her mouth wide. I sneered in disgust, patted Olivia's fluffy head, and said, "Cover up the hickeys on your body first before you talk." Sophia looked nervous, her fingers tugging at the corner of her clothes. She glared at David. I took the little girl and got in the car. James, why didn't I see it? Olivia asked. See what? I raised my eyebrows, deliberately teasing her with a mischievous smile. Just that. Her ears turned red. This look made a heat rise in my lower abdomen. I bent down and whispered in her ear, "Hickeys?" The blush spread from her ears to her neck. I laughed heartily, sat up straight, and drove away. Olivia's family background was similar to mine. She also had a villa near my new house. Although she rarely lived there, thanks to Emily, I knew all about it. The car stopped at the door. As I got out, I cleared my throat and coughed twice. Like you said before, giving it a try isn't out of the question, I said. Olivia stared at me blankly. It took her a while to react, and then a bright smile bloomed on her face. Really? Give it a try? She was so excited that she jumped onto me like she had suddenly gotten the long-awaited candy, asking for confirmation repeatedly. Is it that exciting? I was a bit puzzled. Suddenly, I saw 2 lines of tears streaming down Olivia's cheeks. Afraid that she would fall, I quickly put my hands around her buttocks. In a panic, I instinctively kissed her to stop her from crying. After a long time, Olivia tightly hugged my neck and choked, "Do you know? I've been waiting for this sentence for 7 years. You chased Sophia for so many years, and I've been waiting for you for so long. James, you know? At that time, I clearly saw the Sophia you chased for so long with David, but I was afraid you'd be unhappy. I'll treat you well in the future, only you." Olivia rubbed against my neck. Afraid that she would keep crying, I pretended to be in pain and said, "Although you're light, I'm almost out of strength." As I spoke, I deliberately jolted her a couple of times, and she hugged me even tighter in fear. "I want to go in and sit for a while," she said, nodding slightly with her head buried in my chest. I laughed out loud and carried her into the master bedroom. Although I had sold this house, the layout was similar to before, so I was quite familiar with it. Later, Sophia was unwilling to accept the situation and came to me several times, trying to beg for my forgiveness. Seeing her still flat belly, I knew she had lost the child. When I threw the investigation materials in front of her, Sophia was completely stunned. It turned out that in the past 6 months, she had undergone 3 in vitro fertilization attempts, but all of them had failed. She felt guilty towards David. She not only suffered a lot but also spent all her savings. She looked much more haggard. David didn't have any serious illness. It was just that he had an unruly lifestyle when he was young, which led to poor sperm quality, easy miscarriages, and thus difficulty in getting her pregnant. They had planned to find a fool to take the blame, but they ended up in such a mess. Upon learning the truth, Sophia slumped to the ground, her face pale, and her lips trembling. Impossible. David wouldn't treat me like this. I didn't care about her outcome at all. I motioned for the security guards to drag her out. But Sophia hugged my waist, coaxing me in a soft voice as she did when we first met, "James." I found it funny. In our 10-year relationship, in her mouth, I was always just James, while David was always the good friend, the good childhood sweetheart, the good David. I didn't say anything. Her fingers one by one, took off the suit she had touched, and threw it to Emily, who had rushed over. "Throw it away," I said. Then I took the wet wipe she handed me and wiped my hands repeatedly. This blatant humiliation made Sophia, who was already in a bad state, tremble with anger. She wanted to call me back, but the security guards carried her out. David, who was waiting outside, had a look of disgust on his face. It turned out that they had come to ask me for money. Several in vitro fertilization attempts, combined with their extravagant lifestyle, had already used up all the money I had given Sophia. David's shell company, which had no support from my manpower and financial resources, had become a bottomless pit and declared bankruptcy half a month ago. Seeing David waiting outside, the information Sophia had just seen flashed through her mind, and she was immediately consumed by anger. With all her might, she picked up the nearby gate railing and smashed it towards David's head. Caught off guard, David's head was smashed open, and blood gushed out. He was stunned and stood there motionless. It was not until a sharp pain shot through his scalp that he reacted. "Are you crazy?" he shouted. Sophia grabbed David's hair and started fighting him non-stop. More and more onlookers gathered. The security guards, following Emily's instructions, stayed away, and the situation got out of control for a while. Seeing that no one was coming to his aid, David, regardless of the consequences, grabbed Sophia's hair in return. Sophia had been through so much in the past few months. How could she be a match for the strong and healthy David? In just a few moments, she was pushed to the ground. I stood in front of the floor-to-ceiling window on the 18th floor, swirling the wine glass in my hand and watching the wine stains slowly slide down the glass wall. This scene was truly satisfying. I had long been looking forward to seeing this. Emily, not one to miss out on the drama, was adding fuel to the fire. Her eyes lit up, she picked up her phone and made a call, then came back to continue watching the show. Before long, David was exhausted from fighting, and Sophia was on the verge of collapse. Just then, a large group of people rushed over and surrounded them tightly. David thought to himself, "Oh no. I was too careless." These creditors were the ones he had been avoiding for a long time. He stepped back slowly, but then bumped into a wall of people. There was no way out. His face turned deathly pale. Several people rushed forward and beat the already injured David severely. Finally, the police arrived. David seemed to see a savior. Truly, justice has long arms. Both of them were sent to the ambulance. Sophia, in a weak state, was beaten and admitted to the ICU. She even had a urine bag attached. Coincidentally, this was the same hospital where they had the IVF procedure. The nurse, looking through the records, saw David's name clearly written in the family member column. Sophia, with a ventilator on, watched the man she had wholeheartedly protected trying desperately to shirk responsibility at the bedside. "I'm not her husband," he said. The nurse looked at the man in disbelief. "The child from her IVF is yours," she said. Then, turning to the police, she said firmly, "The father of the child is this man. There's no one else." David was speechless, yet still tried to shift the blame onto me. Unfortunately, not only did the nurse testify, but the court also only had the divorce record between me and Sophia. Several creditors jointly sued David in court. The charges included falsifying accounts, embezzling funds and absconding, and seriously injuring Sophia by beating her. With so many charges piled up, he not only lost everything but also had to go to prison. While they were being battered and bruised, I had already prepared a custom-made ring to propose to Olivia. Lights were flashing all around, and people were screaming. Before I even got down on one knee, she covered her mouth and burst into tears, repeating, "I do, I do." Our friends laughed at her eagerness. After all, having waited for 7 years to finally marry the man she loved, how could she not be eager?